We have an opportunity to hear a really profound story of what God has done in the life of someone who's been part of our congregation really from the beginning. Dan Na, you're going to hear some of his story, and I am so excited for this. If you guys wouldn't mind in joining me in welcoming up Dan Na, everyone.
So every night for the first 60 days I was in the hospital, I would walk laps around my hospital floor. And the doctors told me because I was in chemo and because I didn't have an immune system, it wasn't safe to leave the hospital, so to exercise my legs, I should walk laps. 20 years old, walking laps every night, peering into the rooms of my neighbors, many of whom are 40 to 50 years older than me. And I'm tugging along this chemotherapy drip as I walk, that's connected to a port in my chest. And the only thing I could think most of those nights was, what in the world am I doing here? Why me? And that was my prayer for so long. Help me understand why this is happening to me. If I'm gonna die soon, how should I live out the rest of my days? And if I'm going to survive this, what am I supposed to take away from this experience? "7 months, 81 nights, and 6 rounds of chemotherapy later, I finally began to get the answers to some of my questions. Early on in my hospital stay, my doctors informed me that I might need a bone marrow transplant if chemotherapy is not effective, which is common for patients of blood cancers or blood disorders. They also told me that because I was born Korean, my chances of finding a bone marrow donor were poor. Bone marrow matches are highly ethnicity specific, and there just aren't enough Korean people on the registry. In fact, all ethnic minorities have serious trouble finding bone marrow donors. That night on my hospital bed, I thought about what they said. My ethnicity was a liability. By virtue of being born as a minority, I was less likely to survive my diagnosis. And I didn't understand. If there was such a need, how come I had never heard about bone marrow donation before? Why weren't people reaching out to these communities? So I made a promise to God that night. If I survive this diagnosis, if I get out of this hospital, I'm going to do something to fix this. When friends visited me in the hospital, I would legitimately wonder to myself in my head if this was the last time I would ever see them again alive. And immediately those conversations became more meaningful and more important. In the midst of the chaos of cancer and chemotherapy, my life actually became really simple. Appreciate all that you have, love as much as you can, and spend whatever time you have left to enrich rather than destroy. Cheek swab is the sum of so many emotions. The despair of my mother at my bedside, the frustration of treatment, and the hope of a long physical and emotional recovery. Cancer doesn't discriminate based on who you are or where you're from. And it not only affects the patient, but their entire network of loved ones. A patient is never just a patient. A patient is a child, a spouse, a sibling, or a friend. Cheek Swab is an initiative that aims to spread awareness about the need for bone marrow donation among ethnic minority groups. We're a movement rooted in the belief that people are by nature full of empathy and love, and that with effort and dedication, we can make a serious contribution towards remedying some of the effects of the world's most devastating diseases. We believe that when the facts about bone marrow donation are clearly presented, people will be willing to sacrifice for others, even people they don't even know. The numbers of minorities in the registries will increase and lives will be saved. Cheek Swab is me remembering that promise I made on my hospital bed. Why me? This is why.